Welcome back to Smart Life. I am Dr. Gina. You know, the economy is so rough, and while we're all focused on just today, I had someone in my office telling me how hard she's struggling to make ends meet. This is a darling 20-something with her whole future ahead of her, and she was saying, it's so hard, I can't afford the gas to get to my job, and the gas prices just keep going up, up, up. It's another 20 cents here, another 20 cents there, and pretty soon you realize for the same amount of money you were putting in your tank a year ago, now you're getting that much gas, and it continues, especially for young people and for the middle class, frankly. And so while we're paying attention and we're all kind of on this treadmill, this economic treadmill, we tend to lose sight of other liberties that are quickly eroding, and also things taking place around the globe that could have massive impact on the United States. But one of the people who keeps her finger on the pulse of all such things is my good friend Pamela Geller, an activist, somebody who's really a crusader. Her website, if you don't know it, you've had your eyes closed, been hiding under a rock, is atlasshrugs.com. And she is here today to tell us what is happening around the world, and it will shock you. Pamela, welcome to Smart Life.
Hey, Dr. Gina, how are you?
It's good to have you. The current state of religious freedom. Religious freedom is a term I really never even heard probably before this administration came along and started making changes in what we knew as religious freedom. But what is the state of religious freedom, Pamela? Not just in the United States, but follow-up question is, what is happening abroad that's going to impact us in the United States?
Well, I mean, it all depends. This is the problem, of course. It all depends what religion you are. Clearly, here we are on Good Friday, and Christians across the world under Islamic rule are being slaughtered, persecuted, and oppressed. And what is deeply disturbing is that in almost all of the cases, the Obama administration is siding with the oppressors. We've not had that before in our history. This is really uncharted and very frightening territory, whether it's in Egypt, where after a 30-year reign, ally, Mubarak, was ousted with the help of our president. I mean, he had been working towards it all of his presidency, not the second, but to the first. You know, when he invited the Muslim Brotherhood, a banned group, to his speech in Cairo on his apology tour in June 2009, they were invited. And Mubarak and his cabinet could not come, Gina, because they were there. So that wasn't an accident that the Muslim Brotherhood got in. And when they did get in, and the people of Egypt suffered, and 33 million Egyptians took to the streets and removed the Islamic yoke of tyranny of the Muslim Brotherhood, the Obama administration punished them by withdrawing aid. Now, you see what's happening to the Christians in Egypt, and you see what's happening to the Christians in Libya. Again, this was the Obama administration aiding in the ouster of Gaddafi, who was bad, don't misunderstand me, but there is worse. Now we see Libya under the rule of various jihadist factions. And who is Obama aiding and abetting in Syria? Who is now posting videos, apart from the cannibalism and the human slaughterhouses, but we see them with American-made anti-tank missiles. It's the jihadists in Syria, Al-Qaeda, and Muslim Brotherhood. And if you think you're safe here, only today, 20 minutes ago, it was announced that they found the Kansas City sniper, involved in over 20 active shootings, where 20 motorists were shot at, was a Muslim convert, Mohammed Whittaker. But you won't hear this in regular media because it does not jive with the agenda of the Obama administration. And let's be honest, you know this because you're so brilliant at exposing it. The media, the NM media, has become the propaganda arm for the uber left, for the Obama administration.
So, Pamela, you mentioned this Kansas City shooter who's been referred to, I've heard repeatedly in the media, as a right-wing extremist. Is the term Nazi, I believe you've discussed this with me on the show before, is the term Nazi, is that referring to the right wing of politics or to the left wing of politics? Give us a little history there.
Okay, that's a different Kansas City shooting, just for knowing. The guy who was busted today was, targeting in a series of attacks. He'd been eluded law enforcement for some time. The Kansas City Nazi that you're referring to,
Thank you.
just for knowing, and I'm glad you brought this up, actually, because as you know, Nazism was the National Workers' Socialist Party. It is socialism. It is uber left. And if you read many of his posting and rantings, he mentioned, for example, the uber left, vicious anti-Semite Max Blumenthal. He mentions him, and he's a demigod amongst the left, amongst the hard left. He mentions him, I think, like 300 and some odd 80 times. He was clearly motivated by the left. They like to say right wing because he picked up Blumenthal's writings and speeches from a Ron Paul fan site. Now, most of us that had a big problem with Ron Paul, me among them, was his vicious anti-Israel and anti-Semitic positions. And that was why he was always a pariah on the right. And he was never considered a Republican because of his anti-Israel and anti-Semitic rantings. So to call him a right-wing extremist, again, this is the left who spins out of whole cloth a narrative that is irreconcilable with reality. The idea, for example, that anyone that opposes jihad is an Islamophobe, again, is a narrative spun out of whole cloth. Islamophobia is a narrative spun out of whole cloth. There is nothing irrational in opposing or fearing what happened on 9/11, what happened at Fort Hood, what happened with the Christmas Day bomber, what happened with the Christmas Balls bomber, what happened with the Times Square bomber, what happened with the cyanide plot in New York, the Federal Reserve bomb plot in New York, the Holland Tunnel bomb plot in New York. I mean, of course, I know about these bomb plots because I live here. But if you look, again, the media will not discuss the motive ever. Can we talk about Boston and the Boston Marathon tributes?
I'm glad you brought that up because
Gina.
you've written about this, and you said that just the fact that they were referring to this as Boston Strong was making you sick. Tell us why.
It was making me sick. I mean, they won't talk about the motive. They fear speaking. They dare not speak his name. What's strong about that, Gina? Yeah. You have a president who talks about the victims and how great they are. I mean, it's meaningless. It's tripe. These were Americans. Every American was targeted. These Americans were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And yes, I admire their fortitude, but it's not about that. There is a war going on, and we refuse. The problem is we can't talk about the problem.
Pamela, I only have just a few seconds left, but I really want your take on Ukraine because we haven't gotten into that. Should we be involved there more than we are?
Listen, you're talking to someone who has not opined on it at all, because if you look at Ukrainian history, I mean, that flyer, I'm sure everyone's talking about the flyer, telling Jews to register and their assets will be confiscated and they'll be deported and so on, which evokes totally the Nuremberg laws and the Nazi era. Well, you know what, Gina? Ukraine exterminated 1.5 million of their Jews. They're viciously anti-Semitic. I don't know who did it. I don't know if the Ruskies did it, who have a notorious anti-Semitic reputation. They partnered with Yasser Arafat and they trained the PLO. Or it was the Ukrainians. Frankly, I don't care. Both sides stink.
Well, we'll certainly be following that. I know my pastor told me recently that some of the missionaries there have had their passports revoked, and that they have exiled a bunch of pastors. So things are definitely happening there, and we'll have to stay in touch about that. Pamela Geller from AtlasShrugs.com. Thank you for being with us, my friend.
Thank you, Gina.